My wife cheated with her boss, and after he died suddenly, she claimed half his $2 million estate, and now she's suing me for our house, claiming I secretly inherited $500, $0 from my late uncle, but I just found out she forged documents to steal everything. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here telling a story like this, but life has a funny way of throwing punches when you least expect them. The craziest part. It all started with a gut feeling I couldn't shake, like a warning bell ringing in my head. I mean, everything seemed normal on the surface. My wife, Lisa, was the same bitchy, bossy woman I married 5 years ago. She'd always had that sharp tongue, was never shy about calling me out on my mistakes, but she was gorgeous, smart, and I thought I had her wrapped around my finger. Turns out I was dead wrong. It all began a few months back. Lisa started acting different, more distant, more secretive. She'd come home later than usual, say she was working late or meeting with her friends, but I'd notice little things. Her phone was glued to her hand more often, and she'd get defensive if I asked to see her messages. I chalked it up to work stress, but deep down I knew something was off. I'd find her lying about where she was, who she was with. It was subtle at first, small things, missed calls, a missed dinner here and there, but enough to put me on edge. One night I decided to check her phone when she was in the shower. I didn't mean to snoop, but I was desperate for answers. What I saw made my stomach drop. There were messages, flirty, suggestive, downright explicit, between her and her boss, Mark. They were talking about meeting up, about keeping things secret, and there was a lot of talk about sex, about how much she enjoyed their little secret rendezvous. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I couldn't believe it. My wife, the woman I trusted, was cheating on me with her boss. I stared at the screen, my mind racing, trying to process what I just saw. The next day, I confronted her. I didn't yell, I didn't scream, I just asked her straight up, "Lisa, what's going on with you and Mark?" Her face froze for a second. Then she sneered at me. "What are you talking about? You're crazy, there's nothing going on." I pushed harder, showing her the messages, and her eyes widened. Then she started lying. Said it was all just innocent flirting, that Mark was like a father figure to her, that I was overreacting. She called me paranoid, said I was insecure, but I knew better, I'd seen enough. The way she looked at her phone, the way she'd lie without blinking, this was more than flirting. It was real, and she was caught. The emotional hit me hard. First, there was pure shock. How could she do this? How could she betray everything we built? Then, an overwhelming anger. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I kept replaying her words, her lies, trying to figure out how I missed all the signs. And then came the sadness. I loved her, or at least I thought I did. Now I wasn't sure if I'd ever trust her again. The betrayal cut deep, and I felt like I was drowning in a sea of heartbreak, confusion, and rage. But even amid the chaos, I knew one thing: I wasn't going to let her get away with this, not without consequences. I started thinking about what I wanted, how I could turn this around. I wasn't going to be the fool who stayed silent while she played her games. I had to plan, to figure out how to make her pay for what she'd done. And that's where I am now, trying to piece everything together, figuring out how to fight back in a way she'd never see coming. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that betrayal like this doesn't just hurt, it changes you. And I refuse to be the one left broken while she walks away with everything. After that confrontation, everything felt like it was spiraling out of control. I couldn't focus at work, couldn't sleep at night. All I kept thinking about was how she lied so effortlessly, how she played the innocent victim when she knew damn well what she was doing. I started digging into her phone history, her emails, anything I could get my hands on. I needed proof, something concrete that showed just how deep her betrayal went. The more I looked, the more I found. Turns out she had been sneaking around with Mark for months. I found receipts of hotel rooms booked under fake names, secret texts sent during work hours, even a few pictures of them together at a restaurant. It was like a punch to the stomach every time I uncovered something new. But what hit me even harder was the financial side of things. Lisa had always been a spender, but I never suspected her of being a thief. That was until I noticed strange transactions on our joint account, large sums transferred to an account I didn't recognize, and a lot of cash withdrawals. I started to connect the dots. She was hiding more than just an affair. She was planning to take everything from me. One day, I found a letter tucked away in her purse. It was from her boss, Mark. She kept it, probably thinking it was harmless. But it was. It was a declaration of love, a promise that they'd be together forever, and a plan to split his estate when he died. I couldn't believe what I was reading. Mark had been sick for a while, cancer, they said, and he'd been telling Lisa she'd be set for life after. He was gone. That's when I learned that Mark had recently died suddenly just a few weeks ago. The timing was too perfect. Lisa claimed she was devastated that she'd lost her second father, but I knew she was scheming. And scheming she was. Because after Mark's death, she went straight to his lawyer claiming she was his next of kin, that she deserved a big chunk of his estate, $2 million, she said. She presented herself as the grieving widow, crying fake tears, playing the part perfectly. I found out she had forged some documents, fake letters, and even a fake will to make it look like she was entitled to a share of Mark's money. I was furious. I couldn't believe I'd been married to someone capable of this kind of deception. She was not just cheating on me. She was stealing from a dead man, lying through her teeth. But the biggest shock came when I started digging into my own family history. I discovered that I had inherited some money from my late uncle, about $500, $0. I had kept it quiet, not thinking it was relevant. Turns out, Lisa had somehow found out about it. She'd been trying to find a way to claim my inheritance, too. I caught her red-handed forging documents to make it look like I'd secretly inherited that money so she could claim half of our house, half of everything I owned. She was trying to pull a double whammy, take Mark's estate and mine. The level of her deceit left me numb. I felt like I was living in some twisted nightmare. My wife, the woman I loved, was a liar, a manipulator, a con artist. And now she was suing me in court, claiming I had inherited all this money secretly and that I was hiding assets from her. She's claiming she's entitled to half of our house and everything else. I had no idea she was capable of this kind of treachery. I was starting to question everything. Was she even the woman I married? Or was I just blind to her true nature all along? I knew I had to act fast. I couldn't let her get away with this. I started gathering evidence, bank statements, fake documents, her texts, her emails. I wanted to expose her lies, show everyone what she was really capable of. Because if I didn't, she'd walk away with everything. My money, my house, my life savings, and I'd be left with nothing but heartbreak. She'd crafted this perfect web of lies, and I was caught right in the middle of it. I didn't know what the future held, but one thing was clear. I wasn't going down without a fight. The more I uncovered, the clearer it became that Lisa wasn't just a cheating wife. She was a full-blown con artist. I started to realize how deep her lies went, how many people she'd probably deceived over the years. Her entire personality was built on deception, and now I was the one paying the price. I felt betrayed, angry, and helpless all at once, but I also knew I couldn't let her keep pulling these stunts without consequences. I had to plan my next move carefully. I hired a lawyer, someone who specialized in financial crimes and estate disputes. I wanted to understand exactly what Lisa was trying to do, how she planned to steal everything from me and Mark's estate, and how I could protect what was left. My lawyer told me that Lisa had forged documents, lied about her relationship with Mark, and even manipulated legal procedures to claim what wasn't hers. She was playing dirty, and she was good at it. She had a way of making herself seem innocent, even as she was scheming behind the scenes. That's when I realized I needed more than just legal advice. I needed hard evidence. I started secretly recording her conversations, following her to see who else she was talking to, and digging into her financial records. I found out she opened a new credit card in my name, trying to rack up more debt without me knowing. She was desperate to cover her tracks, but I was catching her every move. I also discovered that she'd been funneling money into secret accounts, accounts I didn't even know existed. It was like she was preparing to disappear, to leave me with nothing. One night, I caught her in a lie that finally confirmed everything. She was on the phone with her sister, bragging about how she was going to take everything from that asshole and walk away rich. She didn't care about me, about our marriage, or even about the truth. She just wanted the money. That's when I realized I had to act fast. If I did stop her now, she'd succeed. I couldn't let her destroy everything I'd worked for the last 5 years. I confronted her again, this time with all the evidence I'd gathered. I laid out everything, her texts, her forged documents, her secret accounts. Her face turned red with anger, then she started crying, claiming she was just trying to save our future, that I was just a jealous husband who didn't understand her. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I told her I was done trusting her, that I'd go to the authorities if I had to. I wanted her out of my life, and I wanted her to face the consequences for what she'd done. She screamed, called me a controlling bastard, and said I was ruining everything. But I knew I had to be strong. This was bigger than just cheating. She was a criminal, and I couldn't let her get away with it. The next step was to file for a legal separation, to freeze her assets, and to start the process of exposing her fraud in court. I felt like I was walking a tightrope. One wrong move and she'd slip away, leaving me with nothing. But I was determined. I knew I had to stay calm, stay focused, and keep gathering proof. I couldn't let her manipulate her way out of this. I kept thinking about how she lied to my face every day, how she played me like a fool, and how I'd been blind for so long. Now I was finally waking up, and I wasn't going to let her win. Not without a fight. After I made the decision to go all in on exposing Lisa, everything started moving faster than I could keep up with. I had my lawyer draw up the paperwork to freeze her assets and declare her actions as fraudulent. I also started gathering all the evidence I'd accumulated, screenshots, bank statements, forged documents, and organized everything meticulously. I knew I had to be prepared because I could see her starting to panic. She began acting even more bitchy and aggressive, throwing fits whenever I questioned her or brought up the evidence. She'd scream at me, call me paranoid, accuse me of trying to ruin her life. But I didn't care anymore. I saw through her lies and I was ready to fight. One day she stormed into my office, face flushed with anger, and started yelling about how she was entitled to her share, how I was just a jealous husband who was trying to control her. She called me a controlling bastard, said I was paranoid and insecure, and accused me of cheating on her myself. The irony of her throwing accusations when she was the one sneaking around was not lost on me. I just looked her straight in the eyes and said, "You've been caught, Lisa. I know everything. The fake documents, the secret accounts, the affair. You're done. I'm taking this to court, and I will make sure you pay for every lie, every betrayal, every dollar you stole." The worst part was watching her face twist with rage when she realized I was serious. She started crying fake tears, trying to manipulate me again, but I wasn't buying it. I knew her tricks now. I told her she better pack her bags because she was about to be served with legal notices. She sneered, called me a monster, and said I was ruining her life. But honestly, I felt nothing but disgust. I had reached a point where I couldn't even feel anger anymore. Just deep, aching disappointment. This wasn't the woman I married. This was a con artist, a liar, and a thief. I also started talking to a private investigator. I needed someone who could follow her, verify her whereabouts, and make sure she wasn't hiding more secrets. Turns out, she'd been meeting with people I didn't even know about, more than just her boss. She'd been talking to a few shady characters, probably trying to set up more ways to cover her tracks. I was shocked at how deep her web of lies went. She was trying to build a new life on a foundation of lies and stolen money. I couldn't let that happen. Meanwhile, I was gearing up for the court battle. I knew it wasn't going to be easy. Lisa had forged documents, lied to the court, and manipulated her way into claiming assets that weren't hers. But I had proof. I had the emails, the bank statements, the recordings. I was going to fight her tooth and nail. I also contacted a forensic accountant to audit all her financial activities. I wanted to show the court exactly how much she'd stolen, how she'd lied, and how she'd manipulated the legal system to her advantage. The day I finally served her with the legal documents was one of the hardest moments of my life. Seeing her face fall, realizing she couldn't wiggle her way out of this, felt like a small victory. But I knew it was only the beginning. She still had tricks up her sleeve. She threatened to destroy me, to ruin my reputation, to ruin everything I owned. But I was prepared for that. I'd learned a lot these past few weeks about her, about trust, and about what it means to stand up for yourself. I wasn't going to let her take everything I worked for, not without a fight, and I was ready for whatever came next. The court date finally arrived, and I was a nervous wreck, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I had everything laid out: the forged documents, the bank statements showing the secret accounts, the emails, the recordings of her admitting she was planning to steal from me and Mark. I knew I had a solid case, and I was determined to see it through. Lisa, of course, showed up trying to look innocent, but her eyes were wild, and her usual bitchy smirk was replaced with a desperate glare. She thought she could manipulate her way out of this, just like she always did with her lies, but this time I was ready for her. The courtroom was tense. My lawyer laid out the evidence, showing how Lisa had forged documents, manipulated legal procedures, and systematically tried to steal everything I had: our house, my inheritance, Mark's estate. I watched her squirm under cross-examination, her lies unraveling one by one. She kept trying to claim she was innocent, that I was just jealous, that she deserved everything because she was the victim. But the judge wasn't buying it. The evidence was overwhelming. I felt a strange mix of relief and anger as I saw her face fall further with each revelation. Meanwhile, Lisa's lawyer tried everything to discredit me, questioning my motives, claiming I was trying to sabotage her, that I was paranoid and jealous. But I had all the proof I needed. I presented the forged documents, the fake will, the fake letters, everything I'd collected over the past few weeks. I even brought in the private investigator's report, which confirmed her meetings with shady characters and her attempts to hide assets. The judge listened carefully, and I could see the wheels turning in her head. As the hearing went on, I felt a strange sense of catharsis. For the first time in months, I was able to stand up for myself, to show everyone the truth. Lisa's face was red with rage and desperation, and I knew she was realizing she was losing control. When the judge finally announced the verdict, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. She was ordered to pay back every dollar she'd stolen, to return the forged documents, and to be held accountable for her fraud. The court also awarded me full ownership of our house, and she was ordered to pay me damages for the emotional distress she caused. But more than the legal victory, I felt a sense of closure. I saw her broken, defeated, knowing she couldn't manipulate her way out of this one. I realized how much I'd been blinded by love, but also how strong I'd become by facing the truth. I knew I'd have to rebuild my life from scratch, but I was finally free from the web of lies she'd spun around me. I had learned a lot about trust, betrayal, and resilience, and I knew I'd never let someone like her do this again. After the court ruling, I moved out of the house. It was hard, standing there watching her pack her things, knowing she'd tried to steal everything I had. But I felt a strange sense of relief, like I'd finally taken control. I started therapy to work through the emotional damage, and I began focusing on rebuilding my life. I told myself I'd be better, stronger, more cautious. I'd learned the hard way that betrayal can come from the people you trust most, and that sometimes you have to fight tooth and nail just to keep what's yours. Looking back, I realize I've come out the other side more aware of what real trust means, and what it doesn't. I'd tell anyone in a similar situation to stay vigilant, to trust your instincts, and never let anyone manipulate you into thinking you're crazy for seeing the truth. Because if I learned anything from this nightmare, it's that sometimes the biggest betrayals come from the people you least expect, and the only way to survive is to stand up and fight back. After everything settled, I took some time to breathe and really process what had happened. Honestly, I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, being betrayed by the person I thought I knew, fighting tooth and nail just to keep what was mine. But I learned a lot through this chaos. I learned that some people are capable of incredible deception, that trust is a fragile thing, and that even the strongest can be broken if they're not careful. Most importantly, I learned that you have to fight for yourself, no matter how dark things get. The aftermath has been a tough road, I've had to rebuild my life from scratch, financially, emotionally, mentally. I had to let go of the anger, the heartbreak, the betrayal, and focus on healing. I've been seeing a therapist to work through the trauma and to figure out how to move forward without letting her lies define me. It's been a process, but I'm getting there. I still get angry sometimes when I think about how she lied, cheated, and manipulated her way into stealing from me and a dead man's estate. But I remind myself that I'm better off without her. I've also started to trust. Again, slowly. It's not easy, and I know I'll always be a little cautious, but I refuse to let her betrayal turn me into someone bitter or paranoid forever. I've learned to value honesty and integrity more than ever. I've also realized how important it is to keep a close eye on your finances and your relationships, because sometimes the biggest threats come from people who look like they're on your side. One thing I want to say to anyone reading this: if you suspect someone is lying, cheating, or stealing from you, don't ignore those signs. Dig deep, get help, and stand your ground. Because in the end, no one is going to fight for your life and your assets the way you will. Trust is a fragile thing, and once broken, it's hard to repair. But even after betrayal, life goes on. You just have to decide how you're going to handle it. I've come out of this stronger, more cautious, but also more aware of what really matters: truth, loyalty, and self-respect. I hope my story serves as a warning, but also as a reminder. No matter how dark things seem, there's always a way out. Sometimes you have to fight for it. And when you do, you find out just how resilient you really are.